And welcome to another Gordon Quick Help Me Again Boots.
Bovril and Bother.
Bother. A delve back into the sort of a golden era of football, domestic UK English football, the 60s, 70s and 80s. Although, Gordon, I heard you say the other day that we could just drift into the 90s at a stretch.
Well, we could. I've been thinking about it. It's really, in my mind, when football wasn't quite so corporate or sanitized as it is now. But then I was thinking, well, it is sanitized and corporate now, but that is certainly at the Premier League and increasing the Championship level. But at non-league level, it's still kind of as it was back then, although there are a few teams that are trying to become big players, even in non-league. So it's a little bit flexible. You're right, 60s, 70s, 80s, a bit of 90s.
Yes.
But we're not cutting anything off, are we?
No, no. And I believe up your sleeve you've been aching to... That's a very unfortunate mix of images. You've been keen to, and I'm keen to talk about and listen to you talking about your memories of the hard men of that era and the hard teams.
Yes, it's absolutely true. One of the possibly better ways that football has gone, possibly, is that it is in fact allowing the skill players a lot more leeway to express themselves, because the laws and the referees and the authorities have kind of stamped on the hard men and the hard behavior of the 60s, 70s and 80s.
They
I
got a
think,
yellow for that stamp, by the way.
good man. Uh, do you know where that came in, by the way, the cards?
No.
Ah,
Do
well,
you?
yes, that was our friend Ken Aston, a
Yes.
referee who brought it in
Yeah.
before the World Cup in 1966, because it was feared that Johnny Foreigner wouldn't understand what was going on the pitch
Really?
when good old English referees were sending them off. And so they brought in the system. Yes.
I keep a set of cards in the dashboard of the car, so that if anybody cuts me up, I wind down the window and I card them, and it always gets a laugh.
Very
It's a
good.
universal now, isn't it? A red card, a
Yes,
yellow card.
yes. So coming back to gently to the hard men, I mean, one place we could start is that amazing game between Chelsea and Leeds, the 1970 FA Cup final, and particularly the replay, when if you watch it on YouTube, my sons watch it and think, well, how are these people still on the pitch?
How are they alive?
And it's an excellent question. But every team really had a kind of enforcer, didn't they? They had a hard man whose skills ranged from actually hard but fair and very skillful to completely clogging. My favorite, not my favorite player, but the first player on any team sheet I would ever have for whatever you want is Dave Mackay,
Every time.
who was the epitome of hard, reasonably fair,
Mm,
and very skillful. I,
very.
I think never got sent off in his career, only booked very occasionally because bookings were a bit rare then. And absolutely the man, who led Tottenham. We didn't lead Tottenham. He was the heart of Tottenham, winning the double, the cup, Cup Winners' Cup, so 3 cup finals, and then did the same with Derby, more or less.
Well, there's a great moment in the film, The Damned United, when Brian Clough says to Taylor after Leeds have stuffed them 3-0, he says to Taylor, I want you, I'll do an impression, it's not good, but I'll do it. I want you to go out and find me the man. And Taylor rings him up and he says, I found him, boss, I found him. Dave Mackay. And Cloughie replies, Dave Mackay? He's 150. And Taylor gives him the great passer of the ball, great tactical sense, great skill, and you can't get past him. And of course, with Derby, the rest is history.
Well, in fact, he was only 35 years old. He wasn't ancient. He was ancient in the terms of those days, but not particularly ancient now, I wouldn't have thought. So it was a great buy by Derby, probably coming to the end of the road at Tottenham. They already had Mullery there, playing really well. So, and a couple of young lads called Steve Perryman and Graham Souness coming through the ranks.
Yes. Now, you
Uh,
wouldn't argue with Graham Souness, would you?
you wouldn't, but Bill Nicholson did, sadly.
Oh, and
Well, Souness apparently walked into the manager's office and said, I've got to play in the first team." Bill said, "Well, let's have a look at this." I won't do the Yorkshire accent. He said, "We've got Alan Mullery and Martin Peters, both current England starters, and we've got a young lad called Steve Perryman just ahead of you, captain of the youth team, which you're in." Souness said, "I don't care. I should be in the first team." And they never resolved it. He played once in a UEFA Cup tie against Keflavik, which Spurs won in a very close 10-0 win. And then he was off to Middlesbrough. And the rest, sadly for Tottenham, is history.
yes. I'm just thinking hard through this era now. I can't think of a side, and I obviously don't know the makeup of every First Division or Premier League side that there was at all. But I can't think of any of the top ones, and I can do a lot of players from a lot of the top ones. I can't think of a top flight side that didn't have an enforcer or two.
But yes, they all did. I mean, Chopper Harris, Peter Storey, Manchester United. That would have been an interesting one. Did they? Well, Paddy Crerand
Nobby,
could.
no,
Pad-
Nobby Styles could
Nobby
only.
Stiles, Paddy Crerand. Yeah, yeah. They all did. They all did. Liverpool had Tommy Smith, of course. There's a lovely story in Hunter Davis's book, The Glory Game, where he followed the team for a year, and they were playing Liverpool, and Martin Peters was at the ticket booth getting tickets for Tommy Smith and his family. And Hunter Davis said, "Well, what are you doing this for?" He said, "Oof," he said, "got to look after Tommy," he said. "Got to look after Tommy. Don't want him kicking me on the pitch." So yeah,
But again, a surprisingly talented, skillful player
good
who I think
player.
scored a goal in a European Cup final.
Bullet header, the third goal. Yeah,
Yeah,
that won the
yeah.
game. I mean, the most fearsome in sort of popular mythology is Norman Bites Your Legs Hunter,
Mm,
but he was a terrific player.
he was.
He was in the World Cup squad in '66 and just kept out by Bobby Moore.
Well, I've only recently heard a rumor, this may have been around for years, but I've only recently heard the rumor that Ramsey seriously considered dropping Bobby Moore for the Germany final and playing Hunter because Hunter was quicker.
It's in the last couple of learned tomes on that World Cup. Yes, it is out there that Ramsey supposedly was considering dropping Bobby Moore. I mean, we will never know, but it is out there but he's a
Alf, Ra-
terrific
Alf,
player.
Alf, we're talking about hard men. Alf Ramsey didn't take any prisoners,
No,
probably
no,
on the
he didn't.
certainly off the pitch. He was a
He-
hard man as a
oh
manager.
yes, oh yes, yes. A lot of stories about him, aren't there? When Jeff Hurst sort of said, "See you next time, Alf," and he
Yes.
said, "Will you? Will you?" Not necessarily, Jeffrey. He always called him Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yes. And on the plane back from Mexico, Bobby Charlton got up off his seat and went and sat briefly next to Alf, or maybe it was Sir Alf already, and just said, "Can I just say I've been giving it some thought, and I think perhaps my international career has come to an end." And Ramsey apparently just stared straight ahead and said, "Funnily enough, Robert, I've been thinking along those lines myself."
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So let me come to something you did mention, hard teams.
Mm.
Now, you will have definitely seen them both, perhaps one of them even against your beloved Fulham in the lower reaches of the Football League pyramid, the second division or even the third. And
Yes.
said team was Middlesbrough.
Oh, yeah.
they had a fabulously hard back four,
Yes.
uh, whose names themselves resonate with toughness. So going from, in name terms, the least tough, Willie Madron, um, Stuart Bohm,
Yeah.
um, Frank Spraggan,
Yeah.
and the fantastically aptonymously named John Craggs, who came,
Yes.
who came from Flint Hill, Yorkshire.
I'll bet he
Now,
did.
what a player that was. He was a right back, and he was tough as old boots, as you had to be in those days.
A name springs into my mind, but I don't know if this was part of the same Middlesbrough team. He was Billy Bremner-ish in terms of stature and in terms of being able to look after himself. His name was Eric Gates. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
Gates played for Ipswich, didn't he?
I thought he was with Middlesbrough.
He
I may have got that. I think he had a spell at
uh,
Middlesbrough, and he
maybe, yeah.
fitted in.
But
I
Eric
think you're
Gates
right.
was a forward. Um,
Inside, I think.
yes, yes, inside forward.
Yeah.
The only thanks we can give is that I don't believe that in that Middlesbrough team it was just before Graham Souness appeared in the team. Now
Yeah.
that would have made them into my second choice, and indeed the hardest team in history, which was Stoke City in 1972-3.
I have to say,
Now,
I never noticed this. Go on.
Dennis Smith at the back,
Yeah.
the captain, who not once but twice finished matches with broken legs. Uh,
What do you mean
okay,
played on?
played on, yeah. Oh, I think my leg's hurting a bit, boss. Well, it's broken, Dennis. So Smith at centre half, another fabulously named player, Alan Bloor, the other centre half, Mick Pejic at left back, Jackie Marsh at right back, and just to throw into the mix, Mickey Bernard in midfield, and John Ritchie up front. I know your favourite topic is hard forwards. Well, let's start with John Ritchie up front for Stoke. And they had to protect, amongst them all, they had to protect an ageing midfield of George Eastham and Peter Dobing,
Yeah.
and a fancy
Sweet,
Dan,
sweet, sweet players.
yeah, and a fancy Dan wingers, Jimmy Robertson and Terry Conroy. So
Had George Cannell gone to pastures anew by this point?
Mel was there, but he was a sub.
You wouldn't
So
argue with him either, would
no,
you?
you wouldn't. No, no, no.
He had the second most bowed legs in football that I've ever seen.
Ah, the
The
first being
Garincha,
Garincha.
who Pele
Yes,
said was the
yes.
best player in the world. He said, I'm not the best player in the world. People keep telling me that I'm not. Garincha is. And he had one leg 3 inches shorter than the other and
Something like
bowed.
that. And in fact, in Brazil to this day, there is still a lively debate as to who was the better player. I mean, they're both fans of both are sort of dying out now,
Yes.
unfortunately. But Garrincha is in Brazil. He is right up there with El Rey.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a
George
wonderful
Canal,
player!
I always like to just touch on the story. My brother and I watching Match of the Day, we used to love it when Kenneth Wolstenholme got to, because he used players' surnames. And of course, nobody was allowed to swear in the 1960s and 70s. They're not technically supposed to now, but there are ways of getting away with it. And so Wolstenholme would sort of go, on the ball now for Stoke and Canal. And we heard what we wanted to hear.
Yes, yes.
But so that was a pretty abrasive team, wasn't it? And not without their success from time to time.
Well, they beat Chelsea in the League Cup final of 1972. Chelsea were heavily, heavily favoured. Very good team, again, with their share of hard men. Chopper was there, Tommy Baldwin was there, Peter Osgood was
Wouldn't argue
there,
with it.
who could leave a foot in, McCready,
Eddie
Dempsey,
McCready.
all of those guys at the back. Yeah, so Chelsea heavily favoured, but Stoke beat them 1-0. And George Eastham, who I've been fortunate enough to play against, best player I've ever played against, Eastham,
Really?
could he's one of those blokes where if you went in and tried to tackle/kick him, ball wouldn't be there. He'd played it off. If you didn't, he'd destroy you on the pitch.
Yes. Yes. Oh, if you got it and turned
Yeah,
and you went for
yeah.
him, he'd walk it
So,
round you.
so he scored
Otherwise,
the
he
winning goal in that game.
yes. Yes, he was a good enough player to have had a distinguished international career, but it's a subject for another day. Players who ought to have played for England 50, 60, 80 times and
He
only managed 2 or 3 appearances, such as Steve Perryman, who you just mentioned.
One appearance.
1 appearance.
Yeah. Coming back to Eastham, he does hold a really unwanted record in England terms. He was picked for 3 World Cup squads and never set foot on the pitch.
That's harsh. But
Harsh.
then football is harsh, isn't it?
Yes. Martin Keown was picked for 2 and never set foot on the pitch. So it must be an
Oh.
Arsenal thing, really. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Speaking of Arsenal, I just wanna sort of make a loop connection with the changing face, or rather the changing lantern jaw of the hard man, because it seems to me that there was a cragginess, a Scottishness typically, not always, but typically, about the hard men of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and now we have the elegance
Ah,
combined with the hardness. I'm thinking, I suppose Patrick Vieira is an obvious example of that. You absolutely wouldn't argue with him, but he was elegant,
yes.
sweet. You could tell that he smoked Giton. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yes, you're right. But of course, I mean, he is still of a sort of different era. I mean, that was the 90s, really.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
Vieira, very, very, of 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, excellent player, as was Petit. Also,
I was gonna say, yes, you're right. Wenger brought over a couple of Frenchmen, didn't
yeah.
he?
Well,
To
sadly, he
be
brought over 3.
go on.
Henry was the other one.
Okay,
You know?
didn't quite work,
Yeah.
yes.
No, it did.
Sorry to mention the P word or whatever it is earlier in this conversation, Arsenal.
Oh, yeah.
You told me that that's not their real name, and you won't
Oh, yes,
pronounce
Plumstead Nomads.
Plumstead
Of
Nomads
course it
as
is their real name.
a good
Uh,
Spurs fan. Another thing we must talk about sometime is inter-club rivalries,
yes, yes.
why they are so
Uh,
sweet, bittersweet sometimes.
but I'm looking at the Arsenal team now, which is, I have to say, unfortunately, very, very good. Still not sure they're gonna win anything, but they're very good. But they don't really have a hard man in the sort of mold of Peter Simpson or Story or even, Patrick Vieira. Declan Rice kind of fits half the bill and is an excellent player, but, he's not really, you're not allowed to be anymore, are you? You're not allowed to be
No,
so hard.
uh, there are players who were complete footballers and also had charisma, personality, tactical nous. In the case of the man I'm leading up to, poetry, who
Ah,
committed perhaps
yes.
the hardest of the hard things ever done by a footballer in his kit, which was to go in the crowd and kung fu kick, or at least attempt to,
Yes.
a Crystal Palace supporter who had annoyed him. That's hard.
Mr. Cantona. Yeah, he did he was he was sent to jail, wasn't he, for it? But it was suspended, I think, at the last minute.
You're right, 6 months suspended, I think.
Yes, yes, and, he wasn't allowed to play during that. And it
That's
was the
right,
only season in his career in the UK or in England when the team he played for didn't win the league.
there. And the French wouldn't pick him.
No, well, you can sort of understand it because they had a lad called Zidane playing in his place. No matter how great you say Cantona is, I wouldn't pick him ahead of Zidane.
And
And more,
Zidane was no milksop, was he?
no,
As
indeed
in,
not.
well, Was it the last thing he did on the international stage?
Yes, yes, Materazzi,
Well
the
done.
headbutt in the World Cup final. No, he was not a milksop. In fact, France famously dropped two of their alleged superstars for the 1998 World Cup, the other one being Ginola. Uh,
Wow.
they dropped Ginola and Cantona.
Yes.
In fact, I think they dropped Ginola some time before that because he'd done a stupid back pass in some qualifying match, which cost them the game or the point or a point. And Jacquet, the manager, thought that. And throughout that World Cup, you will know many of the famous players who played for France in that World Cup. The one who nobody ever remembers started every game and finished none of them was a guy called Christian Carambeau. He played right side midfield, where Ginola would arguably have started, and they had Zidane, they had Petit, and they had the water carrier Deschamps. That was their midfield. Henri was also a sub. Henri and Vieira were both subs. Vieira came on in the final and scored. Henri didn't come on in the final. But they would always start this lad Carambeau, and Jacquet sort of used to wind him up and say, "Get up and down that wing, knacker yourself, and then we'll bring on Vieira."
Yes.
Seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah, talking about up and down the wing, I remember an interview on Match of the Day, I think, after a game in which Ginola was asked by the interviewer. He said, our expert in the commentary box was bemoaning the fact that you drop deep when Spurs have the ball. And he was saying that you ought to push up on your fullback so that you can either get a through ball or maybe overlap. I was really indignant. And he replied, no. He said, I want to get the ball as deep as possible because if I'm going to go around the fullback, I want to dribble round him. I don't want to run past him.
Yeah.
And that that's a mark of the panache of the man, I think, which he had in buckets, didn't he?
He did have it in buckets. He's still very well loved down at Tottenham. Still appears looking impossibly handsome, even though he's, I don't know, in
Yes,
his
didn't he
50s.
pull out of the gig in the Vicar of Dibley?
Did he?
Yes, the vicar was getting married, and in her dreams, that's played by not Jennifer Saunders, but Dawn
Don
French.
French. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's getting married, and I think she has a dream in which, or maybe no, it's real life. In the dream, or the daydream, at the moment when someone says, "Does anybody here have any, just impediment?" David Ginola appears at the other end of the church and says, "Yes, I do." And they got him, and he agreed to do it because Dawn French she had a picture of David Ginola, I must get it right, in her little cottage in Dibley next to Jesus. And apparently, Ginola agreed to it, and then at the very last minute dropped out for whatever reason.
What a
And so they
shame.
had to ring round looking for handsome men. But it's not easy finding a man as handsome as David Ginola. They went with Sean Bean in the end, and he's a good sport, isn't he? He's Sheffield Wednesday, I believe.
He's
If you
certainly
know
Sheffield. I don't know. I
Sheffield,
know
certainly
Sean Bean.
Sheffield.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I wanted to ask you, I know you go to a lot of World Cups.
Yes.
Remind me, I think I'm on solid ground. Did you actually attend the '66 final?
I did
You did?
attend every game at Wembley, in fact, not just the final. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. You're beyond a true football fan. But I wanted to talk about kit, equipment, the changing nature of footballers' kits, because I read the other day that before the final, or before the finals, I should say, Gordon Banks decided to try out this new fad for wearing gloves. Oh, wait, if this is true, it's so good. They didn't do them then, so you had to go to the Army and Navy and buy a pair of woolen gloves. which he used because he said he expected to punch the ball occasionally and it would make for greater safety of his hands. I'm not expecting you to have noticed that Gordon Banks was wearing woolen Army and Navy gloves during the World Cup.
You
You're
know,
trying to hunt you through your memory.
I didn't notice, but yeah. Well, he was a perfectionist, Banks. I mean,
Yes.
again, was in that Stoke team that we were talking about earlier. He was the
Yes,
keeper.
of course.
Um, and again, another man, brought up in Chesterfield, and he was, I'm gonna say he was a miner or something like that, but, very hard upbringing, so very tough man. And when we were at university, locally at Kiel, uh, they used to play in our local five-a-side leagues, which was a huge sport at Kiel, five-a-side. And amazingly, the Stoke City pros were in various of the teams that were in this league, and Banks was one of
That's
them. And he
really?
played on the pitch. He wouldn't play in goal. That would have been too unfair. He played on the pitch, and he wasn't averse, by the way, to
Leaving it there.
you know kicking students
Yes.
for a bit of fun. And he was very skillful. But yeah, Banks was a fanatic, rivaled only about a few years later by one P. Shilton,
Yeah.
who arrived at Stoke as well, succeeded Banks at both Leicester and Stoke. And Stoke used to train occasionally up at Kiel. And whilst all the rest of the players had long, long gone, in their Ford Cortinas or whatever, the Capris, whatever, Shilton was out on the pitch with some hapless junior or assistant coach. And he was making them throw the ball down to one side near the post. You'd go down, flick it round the post, get up, scramble across, another ball came. He'd do it 150, 200 times,
Yes. Is that
just
dedication or
practicing.
obsession?
I think it's probably into obsession territory.
Nah.
But he was I mean, what a keeper.
Yes. Had to hang from the landing when he was a boy because it looked as though he was only going to be 5'9",
He
and he
wasn't a
was
tall
already
man, that's for sure.
yeah he was already that certain he was going to be a goalkeeper that he did everything he could to nudge the 6 foot mark.
Yes. I don't think he was as obsessed as John Burridge, another
Why do you
famous
mention John Burridge at that point?
Budgie Burridge. Well, because you mentioned obsession. And
Go on.
Burridge used to take a football to bed with him.
Did he?
Not when he was just a boy, like some of us used to, but when he was a man. When he
No,
was a professional goalkeeper, he'd take the ball to bed with him just so
something
he kept the
mysterious.
feel of it.
Something mysterious has just happened because when you said Peter Shilton, my first thought was John Burridge. And the reason for that is because whilst I was browsing the history of equipment, shin pads and goalkeepers' gloves, I came across an interesting little story. The evolution of the goalkeeper's gloves in the United Kingdom can be traced to John Burridge
Good.
because he went on a foreign tour, a close seasoned foreign tour, Spain or somewhere, with whichever of the 28 clubs he was with at the time. And he noticed that the keeper down the other end had these fancy gloves on. So naturally he asked about it and he went to the depot where they retailed them and he bought the shop out. He bought every pair of gloves in the shop. Then he came back to England, right? And he phoned up Pat Jennings and sold him a pair of gloves. Then he phoned up Peter Shilton and sold him a pair of gloves. And he went down the directory of all the goalkeepers in
Very
the then
good.
first division and all the way through, selling them this job lot of goalkeepers' gloves that he'd bought. And nowadays, the science of them is enormous, as with shin pads, the amount of technology, the
Yes.
different materials. But back in the day, some goalkeepers were making goalkeeper gloves using the backs of tennis bats. You know the dimples?
Table tennis, yeah. Yeah.
Table tennis. They would clean them off the bat, and then they would glue them to the fingers of what were otherwise ordinary gardening gloves. And this is not that long ago.
No, now I've got some friends, non-league football type friends who are members of the goalkeepers union and of a certain age. So I must direct them to this podcast, and B, get their feedback
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
this, because they will well remember having to do strange things like this
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
absence of gloves.
yes.
But
Yes.
the other thing that occurs to me about kit was when England played in Mexico in 1970, that the guy you'd think is least sort of up to date and so forth with kit was Alf Ramsey, insisted that England shirts were made out of this very light material because of the heat. The shirts prior to that had been, very heavy cotton, which was okay for Northern European winter. But Alf, it was. If you remember those white shirts they wore
Yeah.
against Brazil, the really Airtexy ones, it was Alf who insisted that the FA pay for those, research everything, and he probably saved a few, if not lives. He would have saved some legs in that World Cup because it was so
Yes. And
hot.
didn't he also equip the players, insist that the players wear not one but two matching white wristbands, moisture absorbent wristbands,
Yes,
despite
yes.
the protestations of Franny Lee, who I think
Very,
managed to throw them off early in the game? But I'm not quite sure what his objection was to them. Did he
yeah.
think they made him look a little bit Nancy, if I can use a term that belongs in the
Yeah,
70s?
I don't know, but I was just listening to something else, some other podcast, and that the game again, that infamous game against West Germany in Lyon, kicked off at midday. I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't just mad dogs and Englishmen out there; the Germans were there as well. But to make two Northern European teams play
Yes.
at midday in Lyon, and Alf is slated for taking off Bobby Charlton and Martin Peters. But those guys were on their last legs, especially Bobby. He was, with 20 minutes to
Yeah,
go, he'd given everything.
2-0 up, what
Yeah,
could go wrong?
Bobby was, I think, 31 at the time. And, in those days, 31 was sort of end of career type age. And he'd just given everything. Yeah, 2-0 up, bringing on Colin Bell, it's not a bad replacement,
No,
let's be honest.
no.
Yeah, sadly, it didn't work. And Alf was left carrying the can.
Did they slip something into Gordon Banks' nightcap the night before?
Well, Gordon always was convinced that he'd been got at. He wasn't quite sure how. I met him several times. I mean, he was a local hero in Stoke. Uh, uh, Used to present us with trophies and all sorts of things like that. But he was convinced he'd been got at. He didn't know how, uh, but he went to his grave knowing that somehow they got him. And
And the other rumor is that there was a lot of street disruption, a lot of loud car horning and trumpets being played outside the England hotel until 2 in the morning.
I think that's true. I think
Okay.
that one is verifiable.
Yeah.
It is true. The other thing that went against England, it seems very trivial, but uh, West Germany played their last two group games in Lyon. So they were there, they were settled. England had to move from Guadalajara over to Lyon. Only 4 hours or so road-wise, but to somebody like Alf, that would have been, anathema.
Mm.
He wanted them settled. He thought they'd win their group, and then would have stayed in Guadalajara, but of course Brazil won the group. So yeah, these fine margins, I
Yeah.
think, very
Yes,
fine
I've
margins.
always liked Sven-Goran Eriksson's quote on that. Asked what was often the difference between two teams, and he replied, "Sometimes just a coat of white paint on the post."
Well, it's
Well,
true.
listen,
It's
Gordon,
true.
I mean, I don't know about you, I could talk about their good time football's good times until the cows come home. but we've probably done a good, a nice little tour of various topics today, and we'll return soon. I believe there's a
Well,
way which listeners, viewers can get in touch.
yes, now you can email us at admin at boots, bovril, and bother.com. Bother with two V's, bovril with one. So we'd love to hear from people with feedback, suggestions. The number of topics is, as Tom and I have realized, sort of inexhaustible.
Mm,
Inexhaustible.
mm.
But if
Thank
you
you for
want
that.
to hear anything, we'll happily chat about it.
Absolutely. Just on the names thing, you're doing very well at keeping up with the fact that you grew up knowing me as Tim, and I changed my name professionally to Tom.
Correct.
I've noticed that Riverside has picked up on another of my pseudonyms. This is making me look very dubious, I think. But, I'm don't start calling me Stephen, all right? I'll get that changed. All right, till the next time, Gordon. Thank you. Well done.
Cheers.